If I can have your attention, we'll be starting again. We have with us Jeppe R. Stokholm. He's a lawyer and venture capitalist, partner at AmaZix, head of legal and corporate finance. Today he'll be talking about IPOs versus ICOs versus STOs, crowdfunding events and international finance. And he will be tackling, among other things, what is the industry best practice during international crowdfunding events. So please welcome Jeppe.
Thank you very much for the introduction, and thank you for so many people showing up today. So we have a very tight agenda today, only 30 minutes, and that is not so much when I have to present such a big topic as this. So that is why I will just make a very short introduction about me and AmaZix. So very shortly, AmaZix is the world's biggest advisory company when it comes to blockchain. We have a very great track record. We have done more than 120 projects successfully. We have raised more than $1.3 billion for our projects. So we have done this before. And based on this knowledge we have now transformed our business. So it all started with ICOs, right? But now everyone is talking about security token offerings. And when we are doing security token offerings, we are entering a very regulated area. And that is why that we, as a company ourselves, are also now transforming ourselves in order to facilitate this regulated area. Because when you are doing marketing, and you are doing marketing for a security, then you combine it with blockchain and you combine it with cross-border transactions, then immediately you are triggering a lot of national legislations you have to deal with. So in order to do the marketing, in order to do the capital raise, in order to do everything that we claim that we are the world's best at, we are now transforming our whole group into 4 new divisions. This have not officially been announced yet, so please keep this as a little silence in this room. But this is what we are doing right now. So we will have our PR and marketing division. We will have our digital solution division. That is where we do the tokens and due diligence tokens, etc. We will have our tax and legal, and then we will have our corporate finance. Now, today we have an agenda. First, I will start about why blockchain, why tokenization, why don't we just stick to what we know? Why is this interesting at all? And then I will go directly to the main topic, the big difference between IPOs, initial public offerings, and ICOs, initial coin offerings, and STOs, security token offerings. And then I will end up give some best case examples of how can you do this, how can you implement this in the projects you are working at, and what can you bring home. Because that is my goal. Every time I enter the stage, I need to give something you can work with when you come home. Now, if we look at the first topic, why tokenization and blockchain? Then, of course, I'm come from this consultancy firm, and of course we want to sell something. That is our way of living. But there must also be a demand. And right now we can see that everyone is focusing on blockchain. Everyone is focusing on how can we implement this. And the reason for that is that if we look into the World Economic Forum, just as an example, they have highlighted this again and again and again. Right now we are in the middle of the 4th industrial revolution, and from the financial point of view, this is all included. So I cannot imagine a market that is more regulated than the whole financial ecosystem. It's all about papers, it's all about compliance, it's all about following the law. And things take time. If you want to open a bank account, things take time. But all this can be done automatically. All this can be done on smart contracts, on a token, on the blockchain. And that is why that the World Economic Forum predicts that within a decade, we can store more than 10% of the world's GDP on the blockchain. Now that's impressive. So the winners of the future in the financial markets, that will be the persons and the companies that are able to transform and to embrace this revolution. We all saw what happened with the internet when it came. But the internet was all about information. How can we search for information? What we have with the blockchain is how can we exchange assets? How can we exchange value? So with the blockchain, we are not moving information as we did with the internet. Now we are moving assets, we are moving value. And that is the big catch here. Now, if we look into economic theory, and we go 100 years back, then we have Schumpeter. And Schumpeter, he was from a time where even the word disruption was not as hype as it is today. But basically, he was talking about the same. He said that there will always be this creative destruction, where we have something that is working fine, but it needs to be destructed in order to build up something better. And that is what we are doing now with the blockchain, or what we have the possibility to do with the blockchain. Now, the second step I will talk about here is then how to choose between an IPO, an ICO, and STO. And then before we even go there, we need to define what is this. Now, IPO, that is the old school crowdfunding. That is where you do your prospectus, you go to the exchange, you explain what you're doing, and everything is in order, but it takes time. And it costs a lot of money. And it is only for the exclusive few to do it, because this is not effective. It really takes a lot of resources. But when you're doing it, you may also have to look into the most strong financial security regulation and legislation there is on this planet. And you can be held liable for it. And you can go directly to jail if you don't follow the rules. So when you're doing an IPO, it is really high liability. There's a big risk. But if you do it properly, you can raise your funds and you are now on the exchange. Now, then we had this revolution, the ICO revolution. And I must say, the people who invented this and did that in the start, they were pretty brilliant when we looked from the company side, the people who was able to convince people to invest in these kind of projects. Because basically, what do you get when you are an investor investing in these projects? Yeah, if you look into the return on investment, then step number one is to say this is not an investment. Because basically, if it was an investment, it wouldn't qualify as not being a security. Because then it would be a security, because if you're doing an ICO and investing in it, you will not receive any capital gains, you will not receive any dividends, you will not receive any interest. What you are betting on here is that you can use this coin or token or whatever for utility. Maybe you will be able to use this token and then be able to hear some music, watch a movie, exchange something, store something, but this can only be used on this platform, and then maybe you can sell it to a friend, family, a fool, whatever, and then they can get this token, right? So normally I would say this can't fly, but it did. It did fly. So something was right here because there was a demand for it. And remember, the basic principles when we talk economic theory is supply and demand. There was a supply here and a demand. So something was right. Anyone could do this, and then if we look into the regulation, because it is not a security, then this was pretty much unregulated area. Lots of gray zones. And then some people say, well, if we have a gray zone, then we are out of jail, because then we can definitely not go into jail. And I would say, no. It's the opposite. If there is a gray zone, then it is extremely important to talk with a lawyer. because it is not up to you to define whether you are right or wrong. It will be the court. It will be prosecuted if you are doing something wrong here. So this is a little tough area to enter into, but a lot of people did it with success, which is great. It's positive. But the question is, can we do this a little bit better? Can we do it smarter? And yes, we can. We can do this smarter. If we look into the security token offering, then we basically take the best we have from the IPO world and then combine it with the best we have from the ICO world. So basically, a security token offering is an e-IPO. It is still a public issuance, but it will be a security that we can treat as a share, a stock, whatever representing an asset. So this will be asset-backed somehow, and you will get your return somehow if this is a profitable project. So the conclusion, when we look into this, is that STOs and IPOs, it's same, but different. But when doing an STO, we get all the benefits we have from the blockchain world. And that is why the World Economic Forum defined this as the foundational platform of the fourth industrial revolution, because here we can transform the financial market. We can do it much more safe. We can build in KYC, that means know your client. We can build in AML, meaning anti-money laundering measures. We can do all this automatically on a platform, exchange information extremely quick when it comes to compliance, and we can immediately transfer funds or assets like this. If you want to buy real estate today, you have to do a lot of paperwork. You have to have it approved somehow. Things take time. You cannot just switch ownership of real estate within seconds today. But with tokens, that should be possible. It will be possible to have asset-backed tokens, asset-backed anything, right? So this is the big game changer I will be speaking about. So, if we now are at this stage where we want to raise some funds, then the big question is, okay, how should we do it? Are there some basic learnings we can take with us, something we can learn from? And many people, many projects are entering this space aiming for raising the big funds. But you have to start somewhere. First of all, you have to start looking into your project and do it. Do it. But do it right. Aim for the highest. Because now we are entering an area where the competition is extremely high. And if you look into Denmark, then we had a very successful story coming out from a Danish company called AmaZix. They are working on a stablecoin, a coin that makes it able that you can, for instance, take a Danish kroner and then put it into an e-kroner, or you can combine it with a euro, a dollar, and whatever, and then have this stable coin reflecting these different currencies. They have won an amount of different competitions, fintech startup of the world, etc. So they are doing it, and they are doing right when it comes to their project. But what they also did was that they started out by doing a private placement. They went out and then initially raised $1.6 million to get started. Now this is a clever way of doing things, because then you not only show to the market we have a business case, you also show to the market we can get funding. So start small scale in order to get the first initial funding, and then you build up from there. And right now we are proud in AmaZix that we are advisors for Arise, and right now we are working on the following bullets here. So this is the list I will show as a showcase here. This is the list where you should look into, see what is at stake here. We need to have a platform and technology choice that is wise, we need to see into the token economics. We need to see the whole sales structure. I will come into all of this afterwards. We need to see on the legal side, the legal planning. We need to see how do we communicate with the investors? What kind of information do they ask for? And I'm not only talking about the investors that are willing to invest, I'm also talking about the investors that already have invested. Because that is the next thing. That is the market making. You need to provide and demand for the project and the token you're selling also afterwards, because otherwise it doesn't matter. Then you will have a big success, raise a lot of money, but then afterwards everything goes down to the ground. No one has an interest in that. And that is a part of the post-sale preparations. Now, if we look into the platform and technology choice, that is the foundation of what you are doing. This area cannot be underrated. And I know, yes, I'm here today as a lawyer and a venture capitalist, but if you have a platform that they too get scammed, they too get hacked, then you have a problem. Then your project is not only going down, but you are in fact responsible for a project that went down. So you have to really go into your platform and then really to see, okay, what is out there and how can I implement the best practice when it comes to security, smart contract auditing, treasury management, and storage. This, what we see here about token economics, is so crucial. Because when we talk about blockchain and crowdfunding, then there is a lot of buzzwords out there. So people are then thinking, okay, should I invest in a token? And people ask me, does it make sense to invest in a token? And my answer will be, maybe. Maybe not. You have to analyze the project. I mean, if we have projects that have separated the ownership, the equity share, as one thing and then the token as another thing, then why should you invest in the token if you can invest in the ownership? But I would not say what is the most relevant to do, but it depends on the project, because you are a fool if you invest in the equity share. If all the profits are derived through the token, then it would be better to invest in the token, because that is where the profit is. Or maybe it is a combination. But if it is a combination, then you should be really aware. Because if we have a combination of profits that are derived on both equity level and token level, then we have a conflict of interest. Then we have a conflict of interest between the persons who invested in the equity share and the persons who invested in the token. So we need always to investigate and analyze where is the profit derived and where is it allocated and who will benefit from this. But when you have done that as an investor, then you're ready to go. But as a project, a company, you must really work on this when you go out there in order to raise funds. You have to show to the investors where is this profit derived. And then you are now ready to go. Then you can choose between the ICO, STO, and IPO. And in general, I would say, if you're only out there for raising funds for the company, then you are going into the ICO and the IPO area, because then we are in the security area. But if you are in the market because you think you need some kind of utility token that can unlock something, then when you have this token you are able to hear music or stream a movie or whatever, then you are into the utility token area, and then you are in the ICO landscape. However, if we look into regions, then from a US perspective, they don't get it when it comes to utility tokens. From a European point of view, we get it. But again, this is a global economy, and we want to attract investors. So I always recommend the projects, please look into the security token area, Because if you go into there, I know it's tough, I know it's highly regulated area, but if you go in there, then you can attract more funds from bigger parts of the world. Because then you are in a marketplace where the investors understand you. Then we have the token sale structure. That means how do we sell it? And again, it's all about supply and demand. And again, it's not only about selling something and not only about raising funds. It's also about having a plan. How can we make sure that this demand will continue? Because if there's a lot of demand day one, but no demand day two, then the price on this project will go down. And if things starts getting down, especially if you have this token on an exchange, then everyone can see this project is going down. Now we are leaving the area. And then suddenly we have this big crash. No one is interested in that. So you need to have a strategy for that. And now it's all about legal. Now, you need to make a legal roadmap. So if you are in Denmark, go to a lawyer that knows something about Danish law. If you are in Germany, go to a lawyer who knows something about German law. But if you are aiming to raise funds on a global scale, or just say European scale, then you need a lawyer who knows something about how to do it. And then you have to ask this lawyer, have you done it before? Show me your track record. And what is your plan of doing this? Because this area is not fully harmonized. So you might trigger a lot of different issues in a lot of different countries and jurisdictions if you do not have your plan right. So that is the main take here. You need to have a legal plan. Because if you don't do your homework, you risk end up in jail. Maybe you will have internet access there, but that's not something I can guarantee. Okay, now when we talk legal, it's also important to look into the marketing efforts you're doing. Because when we are in a regulated area like this, you cannot just go to market and then say, please come here and buy this project. It's a great project. You can never lose any funds on this. It is bulletproof, sure. Then again, we are in a highly regulated area. So my point here is that the most important person in your marketing team, that is also your lawyer. It's so important that the way you communicate with the investors and the market, that is compliant. Now we think and we assume that everything we have done up till now was a great success. We partnered up with the best advisors. We made the perfect token economic description. We went to market, everything went well. But now the real challenge starts. Because now we have to show results to the market. And that is not only about the project and the core focus in the project. Now the market, they will look into the pricing of your token. And they will say, if the prices are going down, this is a shitty project. If the prices are going up, you are like a god. Just look into the Bitcoin at the moment. Everyone is looking at Bitcoin and say, well, the blockchain space is fucked up because the Bitcoin price is down. So that must be it. Everything is going to the grave now. That is not the case. That is just the blockchain price, the Bitcoin price right now. But that says nothing about all the other great projects out there. So you need to tell the story and to show the people what is at stake here, why should they continue investing in your project. And that is basically the last thing I have here as best case things to take home. So if I can just make some few conclusions. Team up with a lawyer. Do your homework. And do it again. Continue doing what you're doing. Focus at what you're good at, but always aim to do it best practice. You cannot do this just easily. Any questions? No questions at all? Yeah.
You said earlier that we're taking the best of ICOs and IPOs and use it in STOs.
Yeah.
But aren't we limiting the kind of investors that is allowed to invest when we're using STO? Is qualified investors, accredited investors, whatever we call it. That's the first thing, and I think like from point 1 to 5 is basically crowdfunding. Like it's equity crowdfunding in some sort of way, and that has the recent 3 years has shown that it's actually going down. The whole equity crowdfunding space. The special thing about this STO is the exchange listing, that you actually create liquidity for your security tokens. And as you also mentioned, is based on supply and demand. We will probably have the supply, but do we have the demand for these security tokens? Because in the end, many of these projects are startups.
Yeah.
And startups does not attract as much money as well-established companies. So where do you see the main challenges for STOs in the future?
That is regulation and changes in regulations, because I totally agree, and I think it's a great question you're coming with here, because basically the big success for the ICO space was that anyone could enter with even small amounts. But then suddenly we're talking about that you have to be a qualified investor, and then immediately everything that we had from the crowdfunding space that was extremely successful, then we take that out. But today I can only navigate with the regulation we have. But we can see that we have projects going on now with the big stock exchange. For instance, the London Stock Exchange are really working into make this happen with a turquoise platform, etc., enabling to do exchanges where we can take the best tokens and put them there. But definitely legislation is what I cry for here, and opening so we can get this out to as more possible investors out there. But then we also have the other side of it, the flip side of the coin, the investor protection. So we have different things here we just have to navigate when we do the project. Martin, you had a question?
I'm just going to teach you a little bit. You ended up saying that go for best practice, and when you were starting advising on ICOs, were you aiming for best practice there?
Well, interesting is that when I started advising for STOs, there was
ICOs, sorry.
ICOs, yeah.
When you started, I mean, you started saying that you made your the reason why you have so much experience that you advise on ICOs.
Yeah.
And my question is just that, were there any best practice there, and did you say to people, no, you should not do this because you have to aim for best practice?
Well, then I would be lying, because we did a lot of big projects here. So I would say success number 1, and that is success number 1, no one ended up in jail. Success number 2 is that we raised the funds, right? So that is pretty good. But I totally agree. What we did was we embraced this revolution. There wasn't any legislation here, but the lack of legislation that is specific in a point doesn't mean there is no legislation. Then you just have to see what kind of legislation is out there, and then I would suggest every one of you to go to one of the next things with Martin von Haller-Brøndberg, because that is some of the things he will address in his presentation. So I think I have to stop here.
Yeah.
I can feel that the time is gone.
The time is actually on point. Thank you so much.
I'm from Switzerland, right? So yeah, we should.